Uh-huh.
What's your favorite scary movie?
I don't know.
You have to have a favorite. What comes to mind?
You are listening to Scream with Ryan C. Showers, the podcast for Scream fans just like you. Join Ryan every week as he takes a deep dive into the horror film series that defined the 90s and redefined the genre. Scream with Ryan C. Showers is your source for scene and quote analysis, character dissections, and the latest news about upcoming installments of the Scary Movie franchise.
I hear you like horror movies, Kirby, but do you like them as much as him?
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Scream with Ryan C. Showers podcast, where the film critic meets the Scream fan twice a week, every Tuesday and Friday. I'm your host, Ryan C. Showers. Thank you for joining me for today's episode. Now, before I go any further, I need to thank the producers of Scream with Ryan C. Showers. They include Ashley Summers from the Squirrel and Spud Shop. She and I host a Scream game every Wednesday on Instagram, so please check that out. I also need to thank TJ Jones, who comes from the Box Office Buds podcast. He is responsible for all of the graphic design of Scream with Ryan C. Showers in terms of new episode cards on social media promotion. So thank you so much to TJ for all he does. I also need to thank contributors Amar Karim, Mark Vieira, and Joey Velisi. Joey Velisi is the guy who writes the scripts for Scream with Ryan C. Showers. Episode 112, we wrote a Scream 7 script, which I read out loud, about the end of the Carpenter sisters storyline. And then the sequel to that was called Screams. It was centered around the legacy of Gail Weathers. That's episode 155. And Joey is currently working on the final Scream, which this is a product that is going to examine the relationship, the marriage of Mark and Sydney. Unlike the real Scream 7, this will feature Mark Kincaid as Sydney's husband, and she won't have a teenage daughter. Both of her daughters will be young, so it'll be much different than the real Scream 7 we're going to get. But that is going to be coming to the podcast late summer, early fall, so please tune in for that. I need to thank everybody over at Patreon. Thank you to everybody who subscribes to the Patreon at any and every tier. I'm an independent entity, so any bit of support that comes into the Patreon goes back into the podcast. Joining the Patreon gets you ad-free and early access to every episode, as well as the opportunity to join the community of the show. We have group chats across social media. In particular, Instagram is really the hub of the podcast community. More importantly, joining the Patreon is the vessel in which you would use to come onto the podcast, either in a one-on-one situation with me or a small panel. In addition, there's a guaranteed invite every month to a big group Zoom recording about a Scream topic. An exciting feature of the podcast is the audio commentary episodes. Every Scream fan knows what it was like listening to Wes Craven do the audio commentaries for the original trilogy and Scream 4, with Marianne Maddalena and Kevin Williamson and Patrick Lussier. And what I'm trying to do for my Patreon subscribers is I am going to be performing an audio commentary of a Scream or a Scream-related movie, one per month, every month. And my goal is to try to approach these as I'm doing deep analytical analysis about the characters, about the themes, about just general reaction. So it's something that I'm really proud of and I hope continues to be a cherished part of the podcast. So the commentary is available as a normal podcast episode for anybody to listen to like they would any other podcast, but it will also be available as a video watch along. So everybody, please go over to Patreon, subscribe to Scream with RCS. I would be eternally grateful. So I need to go through and thank everybody over at Patreon who is subscribed as a stab investor or a daddy/mama Ghostface. So the daddy/mama Ghostface of the Patreon are Carrie Tenney, Brett Janovich, Corey Wilson, and Stevie Shears. The stab investors include Allie, Amar Karim, Tamika Jones, David D., Garrison Nichols, Gustavo Mora, Jess Mariano, Joey Nobarini, aka The Vault, Josh Calamari, Josh Carr, Scream Queens podcast, both Josh and Justine, The Horror Project podcast, Justin Weir, Kevin Abner, Mark Vieira, PWO5, aka Philip Douglas, Quentin Harrison, and Sam Levy. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this segment of Scream with Ryan C. Showers. I'm your host, Ryan C. Showers. Thank you for joining me to discuss the big I Know What You Did Last Summer week. Everyone is excited. We all saw the movie over the weekend. So this episode, we're going to be talking a little bit about the new movie, a little bit about the old movie, and a little bit about Scream, of course. So, and also there is going to be a fun little cameo at the end by my friend Kevin, who he voice memoed me a rant about his rewatch of the original film months ago, and I have been saving it just because it's very funny and it's worth being on the show. So everybody, please check out my friend Kevin Craven at the end here. But before then, of course, we need to discuss the new movie. So there will be a full review of the movie coming out on Friday with different perspectives, people who are hot on it, people who are not so hot on it, and everybody in between. Because people are going to be like top of mind with this movie, I figured today, since it's the Tuesday episode, we should still keep the buzz alive a little bit. So joining me to keep the new movie in the conversation here are two of my favorite friends. I guess like my old best friend, Amar Karim. Hey, Amar.
Well, hello there, Ryan. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad. Not too bad. I'm actually really excited about this little review, this little discussion today.
And my new best friend that kind of pushed Amar out of the way in one of the most recent episodes, and Amar got all bent out of shape.
I know, right?
Josh Reinhold. Hey, Josh.
I thought you were going to say your young best friend, but I'll take new.
Oh my gosh. So this movie, oh my God. So Josh and I, we talked about the box office potential for this and how the Megan of it all could impact. I know what you did last summer. And Josh, I have to just share something you said in the group chat. I didn't get your permission, but I don't care. I said... I said something after our episode went up. We were talking about it, and I said, well, you know, about Megan 2.0, hopefully it's better than Megan 2.0. That's like the starting ground. And you said anything that gets above what Megan 2.0 was able, well, whatever Megan 2.0 was able to garner, that it has a pulse. So do we think that, I know what you did last summer with its result of 13 million for the opening weekend, do you think that counts as having a pulse?
I think it's like barely alive, and we have to check to see if there's a DNR or not. Like, are we going to resuscitate this? Because I cannot imagine it's like an easy, like, yes, of course, we're greenlighting a sequel after a $13 million opening.
Right. It's hard because I think that the studio wants to do another one, but it's hard to say confidently, yes, do it whenever it's that result. And I know people are conflating and combining the international result with the domestic result to make the movie look better for the box office and for a potential sequel. Josh and I probably will disagree here. I wouldn't mind a sequel just because even though I don't love this movie, I'm very mixed on it still. I still would like to see a continuation just because I am that bitch. So Josh, what about you?
No, I mean, I would love a sequel, but I just finished listening to you and Anthony, and I agree that there's no world where we're going to abandon the young cast who I frankly give zero shits about and get a sequel. Like the final, you know, the mid-credit sequence like felt so right, and Brandy just like understands how to act and still feel real. Like she understands the tone, you know? So it's like the minute she's on screen or the minute Sarah Michelle Gellar on screen, it's like your shoulders drop because you're like, these people get it. And I just don't. Yeah. So anyway, long story short, I would go see the sequel, obviously, but I think would come out disappointed that we were like juggling the Ava and Danica of it all. So that's kind of where I'm at.
And honestly, the way you described the, we're barely resuscitating the, the life of this movie compared to Megan 2.0 not having a pulse. This movie, the equivalent of Megan 2.0 not having a pulse is Danica washing up on the beach. That is the I Know What You Did Last Summer. That is the box office result. And as everyone has heard on social media and in the Anthony emergency podcast from Sunday, Danica washing up on the beach is literally my least favorite thing I've seen all year. Like I'm so angry by this. I can't even.
Honestly, it would have gotten a standing ovation from me if the line had been "just let me die" instead of "hospital." That would have actually been camp. And I know we're going to get to that, but like, you know, that I would have literally stood up and fucking clapped. And, you know, but instead we got what we got.
All right. So, Amar, what is your opinion about the movie? Just briefly, and then we're going to dive in a bit deeper later.
I enjoyed it, okay? I understand that it has a billion flaws, and I get that. And I've seen it a second time. And a lot of people have said to me, no, it doesn't really help the second time. But I actually enjoyed it a lot more because I've come to, even in 2 viewings, I've started to not like the new cast, but maybe appreciate what the director was going for. So if I'm honest with you, I'm rooting for a sequel. I hope that because it's a low budget film in comparison to other films, it will be greenlit. And I'm actually hopeful that they will follow Brandy and Julie instead of the new cast. But if they returned, I wouldn't say no. So I really, really enjoyed it. But I'm not saying that it's a fantastic film. I just had a lot of fun with it.
Okay. And just for the record, the permanent record, Amar, what is your ranking of, let's not even deal with the TV show and the I'll Always Know, because everyone's going to put them at the bottom. What is your ranking of the 3 movies that star Jennifer Love Hewitt and Freddie Prinze Jr.?
The original at number 1, the reboot at number 2, and the sequel of 98 at number 3. And I've thought about it, and I'm sticking with that.
Okay. All right. Josh, how about you? What is your general opinion and ranking?
So my general opinion, I had fun with it. I don't hate the movie. I feel like sometimes because I can be extreme in how I express my opinions. It
You
sounds like I'm a
never.
lot more negative than I really am. I wish it was a little more fun, because I do think it's lacking in substance. Like we're not getting character work like we get in the Scream franchise, and frankly, we never really have in this franchise. So it's not fair necessarily to expect it. But given that, I agree that like the first act is well executed. I have like a core issue with the fact that they didn't actually do anything. I think that just really creates an issue when the note says, I know what you did last summer. It's like, I know what you almost did, but didn't do last summer. Like it's bizarre. But like overall, I don't hate it. I think I would probably give it like somewhere like a 2.5 out of 5 stars. Ranking wise, I completely agree with Amar though. I think that and maybe this will change over time. You said it on the episode with Anthony, but like there's something that really reminds me of the experience of seeing Scream 6. The only difference is I don't hold this franchise as near and dear to me, so I still could come out after the first and second viewing with a lot of critiques, but like still enjoy it because I think there is something fun about it. It's like playable, it sort of works. But for now, I'm going to rank it second just because I'm not really a fan of I Still Know beyond like Brandy being in it. I think like it's such a bizarre film and weird that it feels like that it's just like they're on this empty location the whole time. I don't know. It's a bizarre film for me. So yeah, I would agree with the Mars ranking.
Okay, so and I just have to publicly apologize to Josh because I saw the movie on Thursday night and I woke up the next day in the worst mood about it. I had the biggest stick up my ass about this movie. The way I was processing it, the way I was understanding it, I was like aggressively in a bad mood about this movie and just the flaws and what I saw as just like the filmmaking decisions and the narrative choices and the general sloppiness of this movie. It really bothered me as somebody who genuinely loves the first movie and has invested a lot of time into this franchise. And I wasn't going to see it again. I was just like, okay, I know what I need to say on my shows and that's it. But Brent wanted to see it. So we went on Friday night and I the second viewing for me smoothed things over a little bit where I wasn't like aggressively critical. I just kind of, my criticisms and my opinions remained the same, but the aggression that I had it was filtered out through the second viewing. And I made an Instagram post and I recommended that everybody go see it again before making their final opinion. And I guess I deserve life in prison for making that statement because Josh, you went to see it a second time and thoughts.
Yeah, my thoughts really remain the same. Kind of, I took your post to heart, knowing that we were recording this morning and that you had already like recorded with Anthony. And I was like, well, I don't want to go in there with like half-baked opinions. So I went again and I paid closer attention, hoping that there would be something I missed, and there wasn't.
Yeah.
So my thoughts kind of remain the same. Like I'm very just like fine with it. But I think when you start to think about the film, think about it in terms of its elements, there's like no there. Like
Right.
it's, the misuse of the legacy, the sort of tepid introduction of a new cast. The women overall really lackluster, like bizarre that I feel more empathy for like Teddy than I do either of the women, that they're sort of presenting as new final girls and just nonsensical. Like, I love Stevie. I think Stevie is like my favorite thing about this movie. I think she's a cool character. She feels real. But then Ray and like his decision to start murdering people, that explanation literally makes almost no sense. It feels so lazy and just like inserted in there. Like, okay, check, he said it. Okay, next, right? And then the pastor thing, also bizarre. So I think like the most succinct way that I can kind of say how I feel about this movie is that I can look at moments and I can see the filmmaker like shining through. I think the SMG cameo is clearly in her voice. I think them exiting the hospital at the end feels like it's in her voice, and so does them sitting and eating on the beach. Like, there are these moments where I'm like, this feels like you. And even I know Anthony was critical of the line about like, when was the last time we even ate? Like, I thought that was funny because I thought it was a comment on how like we never see final girls eating in these movies. Like, it's just like no one wants to see the hot girl eating. Like, we just want to see her running and fighting back and whatever, right?
May I just say, if by hot girl we are talking about Madeline Klein, I don't want to see her eating or anything. I want her to be dead in the ocean, where she, after you
Yes,
get hooked
Ryan.
in the gut, in the middle of the ocean, you don't swim ashore.
I think that it's good that Amar is here then, because I think that you as a gay man are not the target audience for bringing Madeline Klein into this film.
Yeah, well, it's a shame that these girls are so much younger than me because I find them really, really beautiful. And I don't understand. No, listen. I don't understand Ryan's disdain for Madeline Klein or for Danica, because on the second viewing, I mean, the first time I watched it, I was like, this is ridiculous. How is she still alive? I didn't want her to die. But in the manner in which she survives, and my only explanation was, well, maybe the salt water healed her wounds a little bit, But
come on.
I know. But listen, I've got to, because realistically, she would never have survived. And I read somewhere today that why they reshot everything or added scenes in. But anyway, I don't understand why you don't like her so much. I mean, what is it about her you don't like?
It's not for the record. Like, I have seen I've seen my point of view, which is like, I find her dumb. I find her dialogue dumb. I don't like this caricature of Gen Z that is in the script that she brings to life with a very flat one note portrayal. So there's that of it all. I don't think it's a very passionate performance in general. I just find the character herself annoying. I think I would have been okay with her had she actually died. So we've learned that the test screening, there was a test screening in May, literally less than 2 months ago, and the test screening said, oh, we should keep Madeline Klein alive. So they went back and reshot all this stuff in June for the movie that just released now in July, which is wild. Yes, we just learned this. It's been on Twitter today, and I put it in the Instagram chat. So that, to me, I'm just so perplexed by it. I think the test screening really fucked this movie. I'm sorry. It's fucking ridiculous that she survived after the way that the boat went down. Like, there are ways that you could have done it to keep her alive where it wasn't so ridiculous. And the director, in my opinion, chose the ridiculous route. So I'm bothered by that. And so there's like the one thing, which is her character is like everything that I hate about like Gen Z culture. But then two, the survival that I just find I find it so offensive and insulting. Like, I'm paying for your movie and this is what you're giving me? You're insulting my money right now.
So I said this to both my eldest two children. My son is 19 and my daughter is 16, and obviously they're British, so they don't live in the American culture, but they know because they watch YouTube and everything. And they turned around and said to me, no, she's not over the top. The characters are far too over the top when we watch clips on YouTube. So I was having a little argument with them because I said, I find Danica annoying, but I wanted her to survive just for the sake of maybe, she's her friend or whatever. But they turned to me and said, no, Dad, you don't know what you're talking about. She's actually not over the top at all. She's annoying, but not over the top. So I was like, well, okay, maybe the director knows what she's doing. But as I mentioned to you in the group chat, when I listen to Danica, this is how all the Brits, unfortunately not me, but all the Brits sit down and take the mick out of people like that. They're like, this is Gen Z, this is America, this is what we believe. This is honestly what we believe that the young children of America are like. And when I was listening to her the first time around, I was like, no, people can't talk like this. Surely they can't. But when I watched it on the second viewing, I actually started to warm to her a little bit. I thought she was a bit ditzy, and that's the whole point. But she was likable, not lovable, likable.
Interesting. Josh, thoughts?
I'm sorry, I'm just kind of reeling at this information that they shot more scenes because of a late stage test screening. Like, nothing about this tracks. Like, I see that it's a interview. I was hoping it was just gonna be bullshit, because test screenings happen so much earlier on in the process. Like, there's no reason they wouldn't have asked the question, like, would you prefer Danica to live? Would you like the movie more if Danica survived? Like, that is test screening 101. And I just find that very bizarre and odd, and also just like, unlike a studio to fork out more money and rush something in the 11th hour. It kind of, maybe it explains why that piece literally didn't look like the rest of the film at all. like not even close to the same filter.
Mm-hmm.
It felt like something out of like a episode of Black Mirror or something. Like it just was it yeah. So I guess it tracks, but I don't really understand how that would move the needle that much on anyone's watch, of this film. So
Yeah.
bizarre. Very
Well,
bizarre.
so before we go any further about opinions, so I want to get more from Amar about his point of view here because he is a bit more positive than Josh and I am, and frankly Anthony from the other day. Josh has a really cool idea to discuss the people have been talking about camp as it relates to this movie, and even the director herself is trying to cover up any bad press the movie is receiving for critical reviews by just saying, oh, it's camp. Well, so Josh has an answer to that, but before then, everybody who knows me, who knows the podcast, knows that I'm kind of the screen time king. I love to invest some time into calculating the exact percentage each actor is on screen in the Scream films. I've done it for some other films like the I Know What You Did Last Summer films, of course. And I have gotten the screen times for Ray and Julie for I Know What You Did Last Summer 2025. So later on in the episode, we discuss the screen times for the original film. So I'm going to let those be. But before then, just for perspective's sake, I want to remind everybody of the trio's screen times in the radio silence films of Scream. So, for perspective's sake, Sydney in Scream 5 had 12 minutes and 32 seconds. Dewey had 12 minutes and 17 seconds. Gail in Scream 5 had 11 minutes and 31 seconds. And then Gail in Scream 6 had 12 minutes and 25 seconds. So, I mean, like, literally, these all four of these characters are within a minute of each other between 11 and 12. I also just think it's interesting that of these four characters, I think that Gail is objectively the best characterization in Scream 5 of these four, and she has technically the least amount. So I think it goes to show that you can have a well-written and a well-documented arc. It's not always just quantity over quality. So I think that's interesting. So now let's transition to talk about the I Know What You Did Last Summer duo. So Jennifer Love Hewitt for Julie came in at 9 minutes and 14 seconds, and a good minute of that is the post-credit scene. So if we're talking about just the film proper, she would probably have under 8 minutes, which is crazy. Then Ray, played by Freddie Prinze Jr., he comes in at 10 minutes and 5 seconds. So they're decently below the trio in the radio silence films, which is what I suspected while watching the movie. I've said it a couple of times. Like, I feel as though, like, when I was watching the movie, I wasn't even really thinking about Julie and Ray, which is completely contrasts to watching Scream 5 and especially Scream 6, where you're thinking, ooh, where is Gail Weathers? Where is Sydney? So anyways, Amar, what are your thoughts here on the screen times?
I'm quite surprised by, in fact, let's go back to the radio silence films. I'm surprised that Gail has less time than both Dewey and Sydney, because like you, I think that her role is far more impactful, or written better maybe, perhaps. But with Julie and Ray, I didn't expect them to be so low, even though obviously they're hardly in it. So it does surprise me, but I've come to accept that this film isn't really about them two at all. So I know people complain about Julie like she did literally nothing in this film, and I would have loved to have had more of a confrontation between her and Ray to understand why they've broken up and why he's become this maniacal killer or whatever. But at the same time, when I watched it the second time, I felt like it was quite organic, because they didn't just force Julie onto us, and she was given enough to feel like she was relevant, if that makes sense. Yes, of course, we want more of her screen time, but this isn't their film, so,
I get that, Amar, but do you accept the fact that in the climactic moment of the movie, Jennifer Love Hewitt stands on the same mark on the floor for the entire sequence and just yells a line, and that's all we get?
No, and I've written in my first review that it was criminal, and I didn't like that. The fact that she literally isn't given enough. There's so much the entire film has so much potential that was squandered, in my opinion, and that's why I can't give it like a 10 out of 10 or even an 8 out of 10.
Like that final scene between the two of them. Someone pointed out to me that there was like a rumor that Jennifer Love Hewitt and Freddie Prinze Jr. were actually never on set together. And so I did like watch that scene very closely the second time last night. And I don't think they were in the same room together, because if you look, it's like these bizarre tight one shots, like close in on each of them.
Yeah.
And there's no two shot. And anytime you're seeing like both of them in frame, it's somebody over the shoulder and easily could be a stand-in.
It's funny you should say that, Josh, because I've never heard this rumor, but watching it last night, I was looking at the angles and the tight closeness of the frames, and I was like, why are they never in the same shot except one overhead shot? And I remember coming home thinking, were they even in the same place at the same time?
Well,
And I don't think
Yeah.
they were.
and
I
so
don't either.
of course, the most online director in the business, she addressed this on Twitter after Brittany Vinal, Tristan actually tweeted this out the other day, and she said that they did film their scenes together, blah blah. I watched very closely as I was getting the screen times, and there is one shot of them in their first scene together at her house where she has the door open and he's kind of walking in, where I can confirm that they're in the same shot there for sure, where there were no body doubles. Like I saw both of their faces in the same shot, but otherwise, I kind of don't think so. I think I agree with Josh and I guess Amar like about this. Like I think that they were as separated as you could possibly be, which is just odd. I don't know. So
I think that scene where they first meet in her house, I think they were definitely there. I'm just on
Agreed.
about the finale. Yeah, I thought that in the finale they weren't together. That's what it
And
seemed
it
to
just
me.
seems like such a crazy like thing to commit to. Like, okay, we're not gonna have them in the same room for the finale of this film. Like that is something that as a filmmaker, I would fight tooth and nail. Like I would cut the other scene. You know, if we can only get you two in the same place at the same time for 2 days, like we're you know, and obviously this could all be location dependent. I also learned that the majority of the film was shot in Australia, but Jennifer Love Hewitt shot everything in Los Angeles. So that could be part of it too, right? Like she just wasn't I don't know. I really don't. It confuses me. Unless there's like, I don't know if there's like beef or whatever, or if it's just Freddie, or if she had some crazy conflict. I really don't know. Her 911 schedule might be intense. I have no idea.
So, Amar, tell me what else your thoughts are about the movie. Just hit me with some of the big points here.
Right, okay. So for me, the reason I enjoyed it more than most people is I think that what the director was going for, she was trying to bring in this slasher vibe, but try to keep it fresh for the young audience. And I think on most level, it works. Of course, it's ridiculous. Of course, the killer gets up and disappears really quickly. And of course, there's a lot of illogical moments in it. But overall, as a slasher film, if we look back at what we've had in the last few years, like Heart Eyes and Thanksgiving, I think it holds up. And I know people are saying, oh, it wasn't intense enough. But if you look at the scene where Milo is in the car, the first time I watched that, I was expecting the killer to pop out, and it lingers so well. So there are certain shots and you can see that she is obviously a horror movie fan. It's just the editing was poor. I think sometimes that like you said, the narrative choices and some of that just could have been tightened a little bit more. But overall, as a slasher film, and maybe I am nostalgic for the whole fisherman and some of the characters in it, this is why I think I've enjoyed it more, and I've overlooked a lot of the flaws, and I know there are lots of them. And on the second viewing especially, I started to really like Ava a lot more. Now, I know everybody goes that Stevie was great. Stevie does nothing until the end. She literally has hardly any scenes where she has anything of substance. If we complain about Julie's role, then what does Stevie do until the end? So when people say, and I think a lot of people have said she's MVP, I don't get that at all, because I know that you can have your say in just a minute, my friend. With Ava, I think that she's given a lot more screen time, and I know that someone said, own that whole final girl aspect, and she does. She fights back. She's not like the ultimate final girl, I get that, but Julie James never was in the first film. It took a sequel for us to realize how badass Julie was, and I think that if she comes back for a sequel, then she will be. She has potential to be. I think the guys, Milo was wasted. I think Teddy grew on me, to be honest with you. And Danica, she grew on me too. She's not the best character, I admit that. And some of the dialogue that she uses was just like, cringeworthy. But I thought some of the sequences were fantastic, where her boyfriend gets speared. I thought it was a great sequence. But what I didn't like was there were about 3 or 4 scenes in the trailer that were cut from the final film, and I thought they could have enhanced those scenes just a little bit. But overall, I really did enjoy it. And I know that it's not a great film, but I just had fun with it.
Well, I will back you up here about the editing. I think the editing here, especially in the second half, is by far the film's greatest enemy. It makes it like some of those sequences, like for instance, Teddy and his dad's death, like that. I almost feel like I watched 7 different versions of the same scene that, kind of get combined. They're just it's very choppy. There's no consistency or smoothness with it. I actually appreciate that you mentioned Hard Eyes, because I think it would be very hypocritical of people to complain about the quote camp or quote Gen Z or the intelligence of this movie compared to Hard Eyes, because Hard Eyes is more offensive, in my opinion, on those regards.
Mm-hmm.
and overrated. I will disagree with you strongly about Stevie because in terms of not doing anything until the finale, take a look at like her first scene, like when before she is invited to go with them. I thought that was really well acted. I think there was such vulnerability, and I could feel the insecurity that she has as somebody who isn't as rich as the other kids and who felt ostracized by them. In that situation, I thought Sarah Pidgeon did a really wonderful job with that scene. In the accident, like within that scene after the car goes over the cliff, I thought she was excellent there. So I disagree. I think that she actually did a really nice job. In the finale, I think Sarah Pidgeon actually gives a better performance than Mikey Madison gave in Scream 5. I think she makes more sense than Mikey Madison did in the fifth movie.
I agree with that. I agree with that analysis completely. What I'm saying is, I think Sarah Pidgeon is fantastic and she acts really, really well. But I think a lot of people it's either what I've been reading and watching is either that Danica is MVP or that Stevie is MVP. And I think Ava gets pushed to the side, but we forget that every scene that she's in, she look at her characteristics and the trauma that she deals with. I think in the scene with the crash that she's fantastic, like Chase that plays her, and some of the sequences that she gets a lot more to do. She acts with Jennifer Love Hewitt. She gets to show that emotion, even the fact that her character is in a dark place and she makes dark choices. So I just think that in comparison to her, I think everybody seems to overlook Ava as a character just because Danica has the funnier lines and Stevie is the killer. That's my point I'm trying to make.
All right, Josh, any rebuttal here?
Yeah, I think the reason that I really like Stevie. I agree with the scenes that you pinpointed for Sarah Pidgeon's performance, but then also when we do cut to 1 year later, that kind of transformation and the slight shift in, the energy she's bringing into each interaction, I also thought that was impressive. I think that it almost feels like Sarah Pidgeon and the character of Stevie are in a different movie. Like it feels like the movie wants to live in like Danica's world. And then you have Ava, who's like neither here nor there. She's there, but like I don't find her performance interesting. I'm not compelled to care about her. Like I care more about Danica just in the sense that she's so fucking annoying. I'm more compelled by her. Whereas with Ava, she's just there. And I think that from a casting perspective, like if you had a Jennifer Love Hewitt at that age bracket in that same role, maybe it like something about her quality would just like make us care with sort of equally little to do. But I just wasn't super pulled in by that performance. So, that's kind of where I'm at with it. I think that from a directorial standpoint, this is like the biggest flaw of this film is just like a lack of authorship. And I don't feel like there was a clear grip on who the characters all were, how they related to each other, the journey that each of them were going to go on. And so I just think it gets like very choppy as you get into the film.
Well, so let's discuss that because what Jennifer Caitlin Robinson would say is, well, it's camp. You're not appreciating the camp. So, Josh, tell us about the camp in this movie, the alleged camp.
No, well, like to like full disclosure, as I've been just taking the movie in, like seeing her respond to bad reviews with one word, camp, and then hearing people like even within the sort of horror film fan community use camp a lot to talk about it. I just kind of was like, this doesn't feel right to me, but I don't feel educated enough to say why it doesn't feel right. So I've read Susan Sontag's 1964 14-page essay on camp, and now I'm an expert. But one of the things that I came across in it is she says, one must distinguish between naive and deliberate camp. Pure camp is always naive. Camp, which knows itself to be camp, is usually less satisfying. She says, in naive or pure camp, the essential element is seriousness, a seriousness that fails. And she says, of course, not all seriousness that fails can be redeemed as camp. So for me, it's like, are there intentionally campy moments in this film? Sure. But is it camp? no. I just don't think there's a whole other part where it's like when something is just bad rather than camp, it's often because it is too mediocre in its ambition. The artist hasn't attempted to do anything really outlandish. So that would kind of be what I think is going on here. I don't think there were any outlandish or big swings taken with this film. Like, it would have been so much more interesting to me if she blew up the requel sort of formula. Like, what if we were done with the young cast by the midpoint and the film became Julie's film, and Brandy, came in at that point, right? And then we think like, okay, Stevie, it's over, they got her, whatever. And then we get the reveal that no, Ray is also in on this and he's not done because he wants both of them gone. Like something like that would have been a way more ambitious like swing. And I just think that this movie for me is very like middling.
I love that. Could you imagine if they would have actually, let's just say the fisherman there was never a reveal, and there was just like they killed the entire new cast by like the hour mark, and then the second hour is, and maybe Julie had met Ava already, so she knew that she existed. Then she's kind of impacted by the death, and then she gets the note. Then she and Brandy take over the picture. That would have been actually fucking incredible, especially because I think you would add, if you talk to Jennifer Caitlin Robinson, she would tell you that she was building up the requel formula by making Ray the killer, by making it someone we knew for 3 films for the past 30 years, the killer. And I think that like there's some truth to that. For me, Ray being the killer is undercut by the fact that they don't explain it well enough to justify it. So I love your idea. And honestly, I think you did a really good job at specifying the difference between camp and non-camp. Camp that is truly camp versus camp that is calling itself camp and isn't really effective camp. So I think that's really smart. So I just have a question, a very pinpoint question for you on the basis of camp. The scene with Sarah Michelle Gellar, is that camp?
It is intentional camp. Just to clarify, she wrote this in 1964. I think we have a lot of examples of intentional camp that work since then. John Waters' entire, career, the 90s, like from Death Becomes Her to Clueless to, like those are movies that are doing that are full of intentional camp versus like A Mommy Dearest or Showgirls, which like were taking themselves seriously and then became camp, right? Like based on everyone's reaction. I think the Sarah Michelle Gellar scene is campy for sure. I think that there are several moments in this film that are going for intentional camp. I just disagree with the defense of the film's flaws with the sort of the one-word proclamation of camp. Like a substantive negative review of this film can be full of valid points that are not all eliminated by one word, and that word being camp. That just isn't a fair defense, in my opinion.
I agree. So, Amar, do you have anything you want to add or any final thoughts?
Well, I wouldn't even know camp if it hit me in the face. I just watch a film and I'm like, when people tell me, oh...
What if Danica hit you in the face with it? Would you know it then?
I'd just probably give her a hug, to be honest. So, no, I know. What? I say that and you roll your eyes, Ryan. No, yes. Honestly, I mean, to be honest with you, I don't even know what is intentional and what isn't. It was only like recently when someone said to me back in the day that, oh, the first Scream is camp. And I'm like, really? And then I go back and I understand it. So, I mean, to be honest with you, I think that the director's response to, oh, it's camp is rubbish. If there's flaws, there's clearly flaws. And she needs to accept that because she wrote the bloody script as well. I'm not really big on the Sarah Michelle Gellar scene. I love Sarah Michelle Gellar. When she turned around, I was like, yes. But then when I watched it, I was like, really? Would Danica have that dream? Really? Would she? I don't think so. So I just think it was intentionally put in there just for the cameo's sake. I don't actually love that scene, but because it's Sarah Michelle Gellar, I accept it.
It would be blasphemy to advocate like leaving Sarah Michelle Gellar on the cutting room floor. You can't do that. That being said, that scene is completely pointless and could 100% be cut from the film.
Thank you.
I mean, we can't do that to Sarah Michelle Gellar.
Yeah. All right. So, Josh, do you stand by? You said 2.5 out of 5?
Yeah.
I am going 3 out of 5. Amar, where are you?
3.5.
Okay, so we have a nice like range here. I think that like most people will probably find themselves in this bucket, if not even like just even a little bit lower than Josh at 2 out of 5, but we'll see. So, gentlemen, thank you so much for this conversation. Amar, where can they find you online?
Online, you can find me on Twitter, which is Amar Kareem. and on Instagram is Amar Ali Kareem.
Awesome. Thank you. And Josh, where can they find you?
Just Instagram at Josh G. Reinhold.
Excellent. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Scream with Ryan C. Showers. I'm your host, Ryan C. Showers, and thank you for joining me for this week's episode. So we are coming to you after you've probably seen the new I Know What You Did Last Summer movie. We are still muted from the conversation. It's Tuesday. We're recording, so you're getting us on the following Tuesday. I hope everybody enjoyed the new movie, had a great time with it. We are going to be talking about Scream and I Know What You Did Last Summer, and kind of the overlap here, and kind of how their legacies are tied and intertwined with each other. And I have a lot of questions about this, and it's kind of contentious in coming in different directions. So to discuss this with me, I have two of my favorite people. I've been trying to get them on the same recording for a long time. I don't know why. I just get the vibe that I think that they would make magic together. So everyone, please welcome two of the most wonderful contributors to the podcast, Jess Melendez and Anthony. Hey, Jess, how are you?
I'm good, Ryan. How are you doing? Hi.
Good. Well, welcome, and I'm excited to dig in here with you.
Same. Totally ready for this conversation.
Anthony, hello.
Hello, how's it going? Happy I Know What You Did Last Summer week.
Sit here and talk about the two franchises as a whole, perhaps the first two movies, because, inevitably, these two entities, these two properties, they get compared all the time. And sometimes it makes sense, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it gets petty on both sides. And sometimes people say stupid shit like Madeline Klein. Or, who is one of the stars of the new I Know What She Did Last Summer, who said that I Know What She Did Last Summer walked so Scream could run. Someone please fact check this girl. But anyways, so let us dig in here. So before that, though, let's see where everybody stands on I Know What You Did Last Summer. So obviously, if you haven't been listening, paying attention to me for the past month, I am completely obsessed with I Know What You Did Last Summer. I love it. It's one of my favorite movies. Is it Scream? No, but I have deep respect for it and a deep love for it. So yeah, and the sequel I find just to be okay, but the original film really does mean a lot to me. So Anthony, where do you stand?
I absolutely am obsessed with I Know What You Did Last Summer. My franchises are Scream and Halloween, but I Know What You Did Last Summer is right in I'm in my early 30s. I'm a millennial, so love it just as much. I think that I'm obsessed with the OG. It's the better movie, character driven wise and suspense and all that fun stuff. But I even am obsessed with I Still Know, and to me, it's the more fun and entertaining of the two. So them two packaged together are so special to me. These are my top 20 movies. I Know You Did Last Summer, and I Still Know, so they're very special to me. I'm absolutely obsessed.
Yeah, no, and the thing is, as somebody who loves the first two, I wish that there had just been a third movie back then, just to give it
Right.
the credibility of being
trilogy.
a trilogy, a franchise, because we had the straight to DVD, I Still Know, and then we had the Amazon series, which, I watched, I did.
I did watch too.
So that's where Anthony and I stand. And now let's cross the aisle to Jess, who I don't believe is as enthusiastic as we are. So Jess, what are your thoughts on I Know What You Did Last Summer?
Yes, I feel like I have all these buck knives pointing at me from you guys. No, oh God, I saw I Know You Did Last Summer in theaters. I got dragged along by my sister as a 6-year-old, basically. And I guess my most memorable moment in it was just when Sarah Michelle wakes up with all her hair cut off. I watched it back then. It didn't really leave that big of an impression on me. And upon rewatch, I don't know. I just feel like the movie is a little bit, it's not strong enough in terms of I think that it doesn't need the mystery. I think if you remove the mystery and focus in on Julie and the characters a little bit more, you have a stronger movie. And that's what frustrates me about it, because there are interesting things about, let's say, Julie James that I feel like are mostly hinted at, that kind of Jennifer Love Hewitt plays into, but we never really get, some explanation or some sort of expansion. So for me, I think it has an iconic chase scene, probably one of the best in the genre, with Sarah Michelle Gellar. And I think everyone's always infinitely disappointed when she dies. Everyone wants her to survive. She's such a great character. Her and Ryan Philippe, I feel, make such a strong impression. And I think that's why the movie feels so disjointed and sort of out of balance, because the ones that you're so invested in are the ones that kind of get killed off, while Julie, and especially Ray, kind of walks into the finale. And it's just well, you didn't do anything all movie because you're a red herring, and now you're here, and now you're surviving somehow. And it just doesn't hit the same, I feel. That's how I feel about it.
Well, no, and like the reason why I asked both Jess and Anthony to be here is because I knew that Jess wasn't so hot on I Know What You Did Last Summer. And part of the conversation of Scream versus I Know What You Did Last Summer is this perspective that Jess has, because I think that I think that you guys would probably agree here. Most I Know What You Did Last Summer fans are Scream fans, but not all Scream fans are I Know What You Did Last Summer fans. Like there's a contingency of I Know What You Did Last Summer fans who don't think that this franchise, this first film, holds up to Scream in terms of the storytelling, in terms of the execution, in terms of the characters, what have you. Some people have said that I Know What You Did Last Summer is boring. I don't get that, but there are people who they attribute the boring aspect to what Jess alluded to, which is the mystery. I happen to really enjoy the mystery in the second act. I think it's fun to see Helen and Julie doing the investigating. I think that gives the movie a little bit of life. And I will say, and this is part of the difference, is like Scream is a flat out whodunit. I don't view I Know What You Did Last Summer in the same way. It's not like there is a suspect pool, of like, to do the Mindy thing, right? You're the killer, no, you're the killer. They try to do it a little bit. It doesn't really work so effectively. But for me, I think like it's about the journey of getting to that ending of like, we see Ben Willis for the first time, unmasked, and it's the finale. I think that's appropriate. And it's very different from Scream, where we're guessing, is it Billy? Is it not Billy? Is it this person? Is it not that person? I don't think that to the characters, it's not like it's not like Sydney feeling betrayed by somebody in her real life. So let's just start here. So Anthony, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I completely agree. I would say overall, I mean, the obvious out of the way, they're compared because same writer, Kevin Williamson. Same, Scream is 96, I Know is 97, Scream 2 is 97. So they obviously have the release era the same. And, I don't know what Madeline Klein, I mean, whatever, she's young. So, but Scream I Know You Did Summer was eventually made and released because of the success of Scream. That's why. But I think they both, again, we'll get to this section in a little bit, but they do both complement each other, in my opinion. Another similarity is they were all the hot ones of the era, Neve Campbell, Jennifer Love, Sarah Michelle, those are the it girls of this era. So it's compared for obvious reasons, but other than that, I would agree. I would say that I Know What You Did Last Summer feels more to me like classic slasher, 80s slasher vibe, because you don't really have the meta angle. Like Scream is super, even in the OG. I mean, you have one line that Kevin Williamson wrote talking about Silence of the Lambs and Jodie Foster, and that's really the only, little meta moment we have in the whole entire movie. I would compare I Know more with Urban Legend that came out in 98 a year later. I think they have more similarities than Scream. And I just think that, it's more classic slasher vibe. It's not Scream. And I would agree with you. It's technically, you could say, a whodunit, but they're looking for the person who they, hit or think they killed. It's like one person. It's a mystery. Whereas Scream, it's like, you don't know. It's a whodunit. You don't know who it could be. I know the end has a little whodunit with Ray and all that, but it's really not a whodunit. It's more of a mystery slasher. And I think it harkens back to the 80s, where Scream really brought in a new era of slasher. So yeah, that's my overall, initial thoughts.
And even so, like, let's just, because, and like, I Know What You Did Last Summer is definitely shooting for that vibe of an 80s slasher in more ways than one. Like, I think there's a lot more objectification of like women and men, let's be real. Brian Philippe, I mean, come on, like that is like, I think he is more objectified than either of the women in I Know What You Did Last Summer, which is funny and I appreciate. So you have kind of like slashery tropes like that, but also even like the ending with like, the way that Friday the 13th ended with like a big splash jump scare, right? And that's how I Know What You Did Last Summer and its sequel ended. Very different from Scream, which is very much based in reality. There's no question, there's no lingering whatever. So yeah, I don't know. And Jess, what are your thoughts here?
Well, I feel like people who compare the two, because like Anthony was saying, there's the obvious, like it's just there in the conversation. It's the same era. And also part of the resurgence of slasher, whether it, harkens back to 80s slashers or not. I think that, I'm going to just be honest about what I think when people say this, they're the same, or let's compare the two. I'm like, you didn't watch these movies, did you? You don't know what you're talking about, because it's like, they're not the same, like, yes, it's the same writer. Yes, it has a little bit of the same flair because of casting. And, it's very much like he said, the it people of the time, whereas older slasher movies were trying to look for fresh faces. Let's be honest, cheap faces. Like it has those things going for it, but those are like stuff that's on the periphery, not necessarily like the point of the film, where I feel like they're massively different movies. Like he was explaining, like, and you were explaining with Scream, this is more real, like what if a horror movie was real life? Whereas I Know What You Did Last Summer is very much trying to be, a slasher and do ridiculous things. basically.
Let's just get Kevin Williamson out of the way. Kevin Williamson, the savior of the Scream franchise in the 90s and in 2025. He wrote both Scream and I Know What You Did Last Summer. And, I Know What You Did Last Summer was kind of greenlit because of the success of Scream. And if you ask the producers, they'll probably tell you, oh, well, Scream was so successful, we will push it as a Scream. And I think that is probably where a lot of it comes from. It's just the marketing, the aesthetic of it, even though the posters are, they're different. It's just they're completely different movies, different stories. I think in a lot of ways, H2O is more akin to Scream, the original Scream trilogy, than I Know What You Did Last Summer is. So I don't know. I just find that the comparison is so unfair. And it's like the Britney and Christina of it all. Like, we have to check in with this person because, based off of what this person is doing. And my thing is, why can't we just talk about Scream and I Know What You Did Last Summer as their own separate entities, even though there is the thread of Kevin and there is the thread of Sarah Michelle Gellar and there's the thread, I guess, of like the teens of that time. But, outside of that and outside of the way that it's marketed, they just don't seem to have much in common at all. I think, again, Halloween and Friday the 13th have more in common than I think I Know What You Did Last Summer and Scream do. It's a weird comparison that I think is just kind of forced by marketing people. Whenever we look back at the 90s of it all, we look back at the two big movies or big splashes of the 90s. Let's go to Scream and I Know What You Did Last Summer. And I just don't think it's fair. And I think it leads to kind of a weird, unnecessary competition. And I think the comparison hurts both movies. So, Jess, any thoughts?
Yeah, I completely agree. Just in general, like, we're saying it's an 80s slasher at its heart, and it really is. I mean, Julie James is not doing much to survive her her trial, you know what I mean? Like, she's no Sidney Prescott, right? Like, and she's even hurting her own chances of survival when she, like, screams at Ray and gets him knocked off the boat. Like, Sidney would never. So it's like, to compare the two, that's why it feels so bad when people compare the two, because it's like, yeah, okay, aesthetically, okay, in terms of era, but like, beyond that, these two movies are operating on two different like wavelengths and have different goals, I feel. One wants to be more traditional, the other one wants to make its own rules. You know what I mean?
It's funny you say that about Julie in that moment in the finale where she opens the thing up, but she yells his name and distracts him because otherwise, yes. And like, we get it. We agree. Like, okay, perhaps that wasn't the most strategic choice, but I was watching I Know What You Did Last Summer with my sister, who of course she watched these movies with me as we were growing up, but she hadn't seen it in a long time. And we watched it in preparation for the requel. And she said to me in the finale before that moment, she's like, Julie's kind of doing a good job at trying to survive. So it's just interesting, that my sister, who isn't really a part of like the Twitter conversation, she had that impression because Julie is kind of a very divisive person. There are people who really love her and people who really hate her, and a lot of the hate comes from wanting Sarah Michelle Gellar to be the final girl, which really makes me mad. And if we have time, we're going to talk about that. That's a huge I've had it.
I want to, yeah.
So, Anthony, do you have any thoughts here?
Yeah, just for in general, I think it just comes down to like these movies were, and these, I guess I Know What You Did Last Summer now as a franchise, but they were prominent at the same time. So at the end of the day, it's just lazy because, they're just prominent at the same time. It's a marketing thing. Just like in the 80s, every movie that came out was the next Halloween or Friday the 13th. It's the same kind of thing going on. And yes, as far as like Julie goes, I think that, I think something that Jennifer Love is saying now, she's like, she appreciated in the first one. It's kind of interesting that she was just an 18-year-old girl who went through something crazy, and then she's kind of is acting still like Sino, because that's when I feel like Ray and slight similarities, but overall it's lazy to compare them just because they came out around the same time.
I think that you hit the nail on the head. And like, honestly, there's more, I feel as though there's a more to be drawn in like the Venn diagram between Scream 6 and I Still Know What You Did Last Summer. Like, in terms of like, the strengths of both of those movies and the way that the final girls kind of improve in terms, and the ridiculousness of both of those movies. But that would be interesting. So, but like, okay, let's just talk here. So, the comparison was there in the 90s, and because I Know What You Did Last Summer also made a ton of money. So besides Scream 1, 2, and 3, I Know What You Did Last Summer was the only movie to really make a big splash financially. H2O did okay, but like, all the other Scream copycats, they didn't do as well. So like, there's the big lump of them. There's H2O, there's I Know What You Did Last Summer, and then there's the 3 Screams. So, and that's, I think, also just a bit, I think, why we have this conversation, why those two are lumped together, is because they both just made money at the same time doing slasher, if that makes sense. But even today, we are still talking about them and comparing them as though, one has to be better or worse than the other. So we are recording the day of the first little snippets of reviews that we've gotten for the new movie online. And just last night, this morning, this guy named Scott Menzel, and I actually knew him from my time in the film critic world, and I did not like him. He was such a dick about Scream. Like he basically said that Scream 4 showed that the audiences were over Scream. Scream should have stayed in the 90s, and Scream should never have been rebooted. So fuck you, first of all. But second of all, he wrote today. So he loved I Know What You Did Last Summer. And again, the Scream hatred is real for him. So he writes, I Know What You Did Last Summer is the perfect legacy sequel and everything the new Scream movies should have been, but weren't. And it's just like, that was the first thing that he said. And it's just like, right off the bat, we're kind of making a comparison to Scream. So like, my friend Beyond the Mask and I, we had a very deep conversation today about why online influencers do this shit in terms of like, there always has to be a comparison. We can't like talk about something without putting something else down. For instance, and a lot of the time it's not even genuine. So Nate over at Beyond the Mask, he said like whenever the first reactions for the new Snow White came out, a lot of people said, oh, it's one of the best live action Disney movies. And, a couple of days later, everybody saw it and no one agreed with that. And it did really horribly. So I think that like there's like one, a weird, stupid comparison that's unnecessary. But two, also like it's lazy, but it's also disingenuous. That's the thing that really kind of gets me is like there are so many better and smart ways to talk about movies than just saying, oh my God, this is everything that Scream wasn't. And I'm not out here trying to defend Scream 6, okay? But, so let's hear some thoughts. So Anthony, what are your thoughts?
I just don't understand why we can't have two franchises that were popular coming back that they can stand on their own, and we should be happy that they're both coming back. And to be real honest with you, the only reason why we have this 2025 I Know You Did Last Summer is because Scream came back. So it's kind of history's repeating itself a little bit with why it was greenlit, alone. And I do actually think that this new I Know What You Did Last Summer will have more of the whodunit Scream element because they want that vibe in it. So I do think this new one is going to be more Scream than the OG. Because in the trailer, like, we're all hiding something, blah, blah, blah. So I think that's going to be an aspect. But yeah, I just don't understand when we have to put something down just to lift something else up. And again, I'm not saying everything's like sunshine and rainbows. Like, you cannot like something, but that's just not for you. Like, when you're talking about one movie, you don't have to talk about the other and put it down. And again, I have my huge issues with Scream 5 and Scream 6, but I love every Scream and all that. And I'm excited for this one. So, but there would be no this without Scream 5. So that right there is like, be thankful for Scream coming back.
That's how I feel too. Like there's a part of me that feels a little bit like I want to defend Scream 5 and 6, but it's like, Ryan, why are you defending Scream 6? But within this context, I feel it's appropriate. Now, when Scream 7 comes out, I want you, Scott Menzel, if you're listening, to say, wow, Scream 7's so much better than Scream 5 and 6! Exclamation point, smiley face. But he won't because he's anti-Scream. Jess, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I find this to be so stupid and juvenile and just to get people into the theater. Like, this is why I don't really like this age of influencers, because now no one trusts anybody's opinion because everyone's saying that everything is the best thing since sliced bread. And then when we go see it, it's not. And it's just become like, it's almost like there's a new popular kid. Mm-hmm. It's not even like celebrating things on its merits and, just loving film or loving media in general. It's just like, no, this is the main thing and this is the main thing. And now these influencers want to control your fandom and what you think. So for me, I mean, it doesn't bother me that he like takes a stab at Scream. I don't give a fuck. I fucking hope it's better than Scream 5 and 6. Like, that would be great. That means I would like this movie a whole lot. And it doesn't bother me, if it has success, because I don't feel any competition. I don't know because I was thinking in the 90s, weren't Nev and Jennifer Love Hewitt, weren't they both in Party of Five?
They
so
were.
Maybe even like competition there. It's like, it's ridiculous,
Anthony, you look like you have something you want to say.
Yeah, and just to like take another, and Jennifer Love Hewitt has been aces on this press tour, and I just think that we should be everyone should be taking a page out of her book. The cast, these reviewers, everything. She's showing gratitude for like Nev and Jamie Lee Curtis, that she knows that the reason why she's back is because they came back and they did their thing. So she gets it. Why doesn't everyone else get it? You know what I mean?
So I have a funny story to share about me and Jennifer Love Hewitt. So she has shared several posts of mine that I post on Instagram on her story, which is fun. And like a couple of them have been like Nev, Jennifer Love Hewitt, and Jamie Lee Curtis. I've had some really nice photos, and Jennifer shares them and makes a nice comment. So this past weekend, my friend Jude, he made this photo art of Julie, of Sydney, and of Gail, and saying, "Oh, these are Kevin Williamson's original Final Girls, and they're coming back, this year." And I posted it, and Jennifer Love Hewitt took the post and she shared it to her story, it blew up on my Instagram. But she tagged Nev and not Courtney. She tagged Jamie Lee Curtis instead. I don't know if so I mean, there's two schools of thought. Either one, she was doing it real fast and didn't notice that was Courtney Cox and not Jamie Lee Curtis, or she was just tagging Jamie Lee to be like, yes, we are sisterhood in arms. So I don't know. But then get to the plot twist here, okay, is there's another layer here. So Jennifer Love Hewitt shares the story. It's all great and fine. Jamie Lee Curtis sees Jennifer Love Hewitt mentioning her, takes my story that Jennifer Love Hewitt shared, and she shares it. So my post was on Jamie Lee Curtis's fucking Instagram story.
That's awesome.
And she wrote something like, she said, "Girls get shit done," which is so cute. So even though she wasn't in the photo, it was Courtney Cox instead of her, she was just cheering everybody on and cheering on the fact that, yes, like her Halloween movies ended a couple of years ago, but you still have Courtney Cox and Neve Campbell and Jennifer Love Hewitt, who are all, women of a certain age who are still the leads of these movies and these franchises. And isn't that so cool? So Jess, any thoughts here?
Yeah, I think that's beautiful. And that's exactly the same energy we should all be having towards these women. Because Anthony's a millennial, you're a little younger than us, Ryan, but we're all old enough to have seen, these women get mistreated and not valued. And it's like, it's cool to see, and I think appropriate that here comes Jamie Lee with her blazing torch, right? Opening up the road again for Nev, for Jennifer, and for Courtney. And the fact that Jennifer realizes that and is very appreciative, I love that for her. Because she should feel proud that she's part of this, train, that her legacy matters and it was worth reviving. And I'm glad that, she fought for that. Because why don't women get to be proud of their own legacy and ride that train? So yeah, I think it's quite emotional. I'm very happy for everybody involved.
Well,
no, I think it's just hilarious that Jamie Lee Curtis, she's a marketing genius and she just knows she didn't take charge of this one, but she knows how to throw support in every way to her colleagues and everything. I just think it's hilarious how she gets shit done no matter what. And I love her. I love them all, but I love her.
She really, so she had a podcast. I forget what the name of it was back in years ago, back whenever the Halloween movies were still coming out. It was called Good Friends, I think it was. And she would interview just her friends in the industry. And she talked about the fact that she used to do commercials and stuff. And she said that she could, sell anything, anybody. And it's true. It really is. I mean, that's why the promotion of Halloween was as unhinged as it was, the trauma of it all. But, no, I completely agree. It's just so funny, how it took, this domino effect of me to J-Love, J-Love to Jamie Lee, and then all of a sudden my post is being seen by 90,000 people because of Jamie Lee Curtis. Thank you, Jamie Lee. Oh my God. But going back to what Jess said, I think it's interesting too how feminism within the context of even just requel 90s slashers coming back, horror movies in the modern day is still changing and evolving. It's nothing is ever a perfect one size fits all. Jamie Lee kind of led the way. Nev and Courtney were there. Nev didn't get paid. She took a firm stance. And then whenever I Know What You Did Last Summer came around, this is around the time that Nev got Scream 7 and Courtney came back. And Jennifer Love Hewitt at this time, she was really holding out and didn't sign on when the rest of the cast was filming in Australia. So the whole movie was kind of filmed, other than the Julie scene, in Australia. Then they came back and filmed the Jennifer Love Hewitt scenes after she finished negotiating. So she was negotiating mid-movie. They finished the entire movie before she even signed on the dotted line. That to me shows that she has a brass pair of balls to be you're going to respect me, you're going to respect Julie. I don't know if it was money, I don't know if it was Julie's screen time, I don't know if it was Julie's content, what she's doing for a living, how she's used the importance of Julie, but there's obviously something that she was really fighting for. So, and I really, really respect that. Jess, do you have anything you want to share?
Yeah, I love that. I feel because the thing is with me is I'm not a big fan of this movie, and obvious, it's not I disrespect it. I'm yeah, it's there. If it's on, I'll watch it. I think like I said, legendary chase scene, you have to respect it. That's awesome. It's so effective even watching it now, and it's the best part of the score is in that chase scene. So when it comes to her saying that and holding out and stuff, I respect it. I think that she might have felt empowered to do that because of Nev as well. Because at the end of the day, that probably gave her confidence to say, hey, at all roads end with me. I am the final girl of this fucking movie. And if you do this, yeah, true. If you do this and it flops and it falls on its face, guess what? You're probably going to be knocking 5 years later trying to revive again, but this time with me. I'm happy for her because I feel Jennifer Love Hewitt, I know people don't like her as Julie James, but I do. I think she's acting well. I just think that she could have been expanded upon and written better.
Mm-hmm.
I think that there's just some missing key moments that would have helped her character in that first movie. And I don't remember the second movie that well. I didn't revisit, but yeah, I don't see why she gets such a bad rep, and I'm happy that she was able to pull it off and sneak her way into her own movie, which is fucked up that she even had to do that.
Well, and let's just finish out the quadret here of adding Courtney Cox into the mix, because Courtney, even though Nev has the big triumphant story because she wasn't in Scream 6 and now she's an executive producer and she is the main character. She's going to be in practically every scene of Scream 7. Courtney Cox similarly did the Jennifer Love Hewitt thing. I don't think she made it as painful, but I think she made it pretty painful in terms of she wanted Gail to be respected. She wanted David to be respected. She wanted this to be a real reason to come back. I think that Scream 6 and how they reduced Gail to an Act 2 cameo and assassinated her character development really kind of made her stop and reflect, oh wow, I need to be more careful about just signing up. I need to actually do the work to ensure that the work is worth doing. Okay, so and this is how deep this bullshit of comparing I Know What You Did Last Summer and Scream goes. I swore I wasn't going to talk about this in season 5, but here we are. I saw some toxic Melissa Barrera people yesterday complaining about Nev and how Jennifer Love Hewitt is such a better final girl because of she is a white woman who knows when her time is up in her franchise and to pass the torch.
That's hilarious.
Because Jennifer Love Hewitt talked about the new final girl of the new cast, and I Know What You Did Last Summer. I forget her name, but she was in Bodies, Bodies, Bodies. And Jennifer Love Hewitt took a selfie with her and stuff, and talked about oh, this, I really really enjoyed working with her. That was the gist of what Jennifer Love Hewitt said. But they twisted it to be Jennifer Love Hewitt felt, I'm passing the torch because my time is over. And that's not what she said at all. But again, we're comparing these two franchises, these two characters, the two approaches. Meanwhile, Nev Campbell is money hungry. I don't get that. I've heard 3 different people mention me in Facebook comments this weekend saying you and Nev Campbell are money hungry whores. I'm like, first of all, just to be in a sentence with Nev Campbell is an honor. So, but I reject the premise. So don't insult Nev. So I want to hear from Jess first before Anthony, but then Anthony. So Jess,
I'm quite literally fucking disgusted. What the fuck they mean that she's graceful because she's about to walk away from her franchise? Oh, she's a graceful white woman for stepping out of the way of her own fucking franchise? Okay, because the complexities here, they exist, right? Because obviously when we talk about tiers of power, here comes white women right underneath white men, right? But that doesn't mean that they're not also suffering. I mean, it's so fucking insane that Jamie Lee can come back and produce one of the most highest grossing horror movies of all time by coming back as her age. Mm-hmm. And really excite a fan base to go watch that movie. And then every other, iconic final girl after her, can come after her and they are struggling for good stories, for good pay, for being valued and respected. How is that even possible? Yeah. So you want to talk about, let's uplift this little Gen Z girl over here, but what about her? What about older women? Yeah. You know what I mean? What about
valued in the industry? Being an older woman in the industry, that may, being a young white woman in the industry may put you under the Brad Pitts, but being an older woman, a woman over 50, that puts you way down in ways that you have to claw to get out of.
No, yeah. I mean, listen, women have been going through this since forever, right? In classic Hollywood days, it was once you start turning 30, they're going to start kicking you off and maybe not, you don't even get a picture. And now it's yes, the age has risen, but it's still a challenge. And to minimize that struggle for some random, young ingenue who will have opportunity. You know what I mean? Yes, of course, it's harder because especially when you're, Asian or especially ambiguously Asian, people have trouble with that getting casted. But that doesn't mean that she has to sacrifice herself. Why do women always have to do that? Why can't we climb together? Why does one woman always have to throw themselves off the cliff for the sake of another? And I feel like that's a false narrative and a false idealization, because this is how we keep the door getting thinner and more narrow. Only certain women get to walk through that door. Only a certain amount, not everyone. And they don't realize that they themselves are spreading misogynistic concepts, because I wholeheartedly say fuck that. And I'm offended for Jennifer Love Hewitt. The fuck you mean
Me
she gonna
too.
like bring herself down or be humble? This is her franchise. Like, come on.
Shut the fuck up. And like how double these people look whenever, and let's just say the new movie does well. Let's just say that, you know, we're still optimistic here. Let's just say it does well and they announce a second film. And what happens if it's a two-hander between Julie and the new chick? Like they are the two main characters, like in a side-by-side co-lead situation. Or Jennifer Love Hewitt just comes back in a small role again, you know, in the next one. She's going to be back. Like, I don't think Jennifer Love Hewitt is going to she's loving this. She's not going to give it up. I'm just going to say. So you dumb little Twitter person, got to get on board. So Anthony, what are your thoughts here?
It's just so funny how they think they're so progressive, but they're literally feeding into the ageism of Hollywood. And, like, you know, it's possible to have, you know, around 25 million, mark my words. We'll get a sequel announcement and it'll be starring Jennifer Love Hewitt in I'll Never Forget What You Did Last Summer or whatever. So it's hilarious that they say handing off, because she literally said, like, I'm down to do these till I'm 60. So it's just so funny how they just pick and choose what to say, make up stuff. It's so funny.
If there is a sequel to I Know What You Did Last Summer, see, this is why I find it annoying that we have the same fucking titles for the same movies. Like, you know, Halloween 78, Halloween 2018. It's already a mouthful to say, I know what you did last summer. So now we're gonna have to start saying, I know what you did last summer, or 1997. I know what you did last summer, 2025. Right. I hope that can we simplify it? Can it just be I Still Know? Could that be the sequel to this? Right. What are your thoughts, Anthony?
I'm annoyed because that trash third movie, I really think I'll Always Know is a great title, but I don't want to have any comparison to the trash that came out. So I'm thinking it's going to be something like, if it's not I'll Always Know, it's going to be like I'll Never Forget, or like something. I think I Still Know would be cool, just I Still Know, not I Still Know We Did Last Summer, because I'm so done with same titles. I'm so annoyed with it. And I wish they were, because from what I've heard, again, I haven't, no spoilers, but this movie is going to take big swings. So I do wish they also took a swing with the title and just switched it up a little bit. But I'm excited for a requel to like do something crazy. And I think I Still Know is pretty sweet. I like your idea with that. But I'm down for I'll Always Know, or no, not I'll Always, because I don't want to have any consideration with other trash. But I'll Always Know, I'll Never Forget. Whatever. Just don't do I Know We Did Last Summer 2, because that'll piss me off, because this is the third movie already.
Yeah. Jess, I know you're not as invested in this as me and Anthony, but what are your thoughts?
I think I Still Know ... is fine. You know what I mean?
Yeah, do the dots.
Yeah,
do 4 dots
like it.
for 4 of them.
Oh, yes. I know, I like that. But like, yes, as far as the titles go, yes, it does annoy me that they decided to just rename it again. And it's like, because you're right, it's a mouthful and you're not helping at all. But yeah, I hope that they just either shorten it or come up with something. But as far as like the sequel goes, I hope that the sequel is more focused on Jennifer Love Hewitt. If she is going to be like some sort of psychologist running around, I think she should have a bigger role.
And like, also maybe she made that a part of her contract. Like, my dream is like Jennifer Love Hewitt doing like the Nev Campbell thing. Like, okay, yes, I'll come back, but I want this, I want that, I want this and that. And that's kind of what I would love for Jennifer Love Hewitt to have done. Been like, oh yeah, and if there's a part 2, I'm going to be in it and I'm going to have a significant role. Like, that's what I would have dreamed for her to do. But so yeah. Well, okay, so someone already mentioned it earlier, but just even the mere fact that we are sitting here ahead of a new I Know What You Did Last Summer movie, it kind of undercuts my argument that we can't compare them, that we shouldn't compare them, because we are literally sitting here because of Halloween 2018 and because of Scream 5 and Scream 6. That is what probably gave the studio the inspiration, the confidence to pursue bringing back another slasher franchise. Because even if this doesn't make Scream level money, which it won't, it will still make some, because the vibes are in the air and people are already, hungry and like, craving more Scream. So why not give them I Know What You Did Last Summer while we're waiting for Scream 7, right? So it makes sense. So let's hit the similarities first, just because there are fewer of them to reinforce my point here, to reinforce my thesis. So obviously, then we're talking about the original Scream and the original I Know What You Did Last Summer. So how they're similar. Obviously the same writer. Obviously, the same style of chase scenes, like the prolonged, Sydney running through the house, Casey Becker running around her house and outside. I mean, Helen's is longer. Helen's is the goat. Helen's, in my opinion, is the greatest chase scene of all time. The way that the female characters are written, they're kind of similar in a way. I get the same vibe of like the time that they were written. Like there's a gloomy final girl. There's a morality aspect to them. They're very prominent women that aren't girl bosses, to use Jess's favorite phrase. They contain bickering siblings, right? You have Elsa and Helen, and you have Dewey and Tatum. They both have small town vibes, and the identity of the killer is unknown. So I will give them that. They both came out in the same era. I call it the Scream era of slashers, the time in cinema. So they're both in the horror slashers genre, but that is not enough, man, to really draw such a steep comparison that how they're always lumped together. And they both kind of have that Kevin Williamson dialogue, like that fast talking, clever, self-conscious, highly educated teens that we really saw rise to prominence around the time of Scream. So Jess, any thoughts on any similarities or anything you want to add?
No, I think you kind of got it. As far as like, how do I feel? Like the similarities are basically what you listed out, but they're just like almost like as if you were just like checking off a box of like something in a very like qualitative way. It's the only like that's why I feel about it. It's very skin deep because even when it comes to Julie and Sydney as like direct comparisons, because you're right, they are the gloomy, final girl. Probably Julie more literally because they do that whole depressed look on her as soon as we see her again in college. But I would say, that's just like even that, like aesthetically versus like Nev, like kind of soulfully. Yeah, I don't know. I do agree. I don't know about anything else that would be similar to me outside of like maybe, yeah, that's basically it.
Okay, Anthony?
Yeah, I mean, I think your similarities are spot on. I would say, like, besides the writer and, the fast talking cleverness and the era of, like, the time in cinema, I would say that all the other bullet points, I mean, Scream and I Know December do it so great, but it's kind of like some of these bullet points are kind of like horror 101. Not in a bad way, but you need conflict in a horror movie, bickering siblings, bickering whatever. You kind of need some of these things to have drama in your movie. So I wouldn't say it's an I Know He Does Summer because it was in Scream. I just think kind of like, film 101 kind of stuff. You have to have stuff to create drama. So besides the few bullet points, I don't think that it was just because Scream came before. I just think it's because these both movies have to be horror and have to have drama in them. So overall, the similarities can be found in, not just I know when Scream go back to 80s slash, like, oh, that final girl looked gloomy and depressed in the 80s. Like you can find these similarities not just in these two movies. So I would say overall, you're like really, perfect with your similarities. But yeah, it could be found in many other movies besides just these two as well. So
exactly, and that's kind of the point. It's like, so why pick? Why is Scream Britney? I know she's last summer Christina Aguilera. Oh, okay. Let's go to the differences now, because like I think these are more important, and like I think for Scream fans, as I say the differences, you'll probably be like, oh, I never thought of that, and they'll hit you deep as people who know and understand the formula of Scream so well. So an obvious difference. Again, I don't want to sound so like I'm talking to a third grader, but it has to be pointed out. Opening credits versus the ending credits. I mean, I Know What You Did Last Summer is famous for that opening shot on the water versus Scream having the ending credits of like the cast taking a bow. So there's that. Scream 1, you have a big opening scene, spectacular, scary, blah, blah, blah. Whereas in I Know What You Did Last Summer, it's much more, there is no opening scene. It just, unless if you count the entire first 20 minutes of, the Ben Willis and David Egan thing, and then Helen winning, and then the party, and then the beach, and then the accident. Like if you want to count all of that as the opening, sure, I guess. But, the big set piece of Scream 1 is Casey Becker. The big set piece of I Know What You Did Last Summer is the car accident. They happen at different times in the movie. It's different. In Scream, you have one main character, kind of two if you count Gail in the sequels. And I Know What You Did Last Summer, you have four. So the different perspective of having one main character versus four is very different. And to back this up, I want to just, talk about their screen times, because I have their screen times here. So I actually gathered this data back during the pandemic. I've never had a good time to use it, but here we are. Okay, so I'm going to run through the screen times here. In I Know What You Did Last Summer, the first movie, Julie has 39 minutes and 28 seconds. Helen has 34 minutes and 32 seconds. Barry has 23 minutes and 12 seconds. And Ray has 19 minutes and 28 seconds. So, I mean, the two girls are very, very close together. I mean, I don't think anybody would have guessed that Helen and Julie would be that close together, just because Julie is sold and feels like the main character in a lot of senses. Helen is kind of the best friend, but she actually gets a lot of screen time. She's with Julie when they're investigating. She kind of takes over the movie in terms of her POV, from the parade, from getting her hair cut off, to the parade, to Barry's death, to the big long epic scene that ends in her death. And the two guys are very close together. Barry has 23, Ray has 19. I would argue that the two girls are at least lead and the guys are supporting, or they're all just lead. And that's different than Sydney being the main character of Scream and driving the narrative in a different way.
No, I mean, everything you're saying, you're just proving your point that you can see like they have similar tone and vibe, but everything you're saying, they couldn't be more different, you know? Just from the opening sequence, opening 20 minutes alone, we have so many different things, you know? One's known for their opening credits, one known for their closing. I just think, you know, one is about a group of people. You have one, Scream is about our protagonist. We're following one character. We have supporting, but we're following Sydney. You know, we're following, you know, this is the core four. This is, in my opinion, the core four is I Know What You Did Last Summer throughout that entire movie. So there's so many differences alone. I mean, and you'll get to the rest of your list, but you can just see how I Know What You Did Last Summer is so 80s. It harkens back to my opinion, when even listening to you talk, this is very, you know, prom night, Terror Train, House on Sorority Row. So like, I Know What You Did Last Summer is full on 80s nostalgia, where Scream created its own meta genre. So different.
Jess, any thoughts so far?
Yeah, that's such an apt comparison. Like especially something like Prom Night, where you kind of leave Jamie Lee's perspective, and get to know and really like some of these characters, similar to like we do with Helen. So my thing is that I agree these are all main big differences, and I feel like that's why I feel a little upset when people compare the two, because one of my biggest issues with I Know What You Did Last Summer is the fact that the POVs are so divided. Is the fact that when you said that Helen and Julie have the similar screen times, I'm not surprised at all, because I don't know what happened, but it almost feels like they wanted Sarah Michelle to take over that movie. And maybe it's because of Buffy. I don't know, right? Like maybe they felt that she was more marketable, but she's certainly in this movie quite a bit. I'm not saying it almost feels like a little bit too much, which is sacrilege to say because it's Sarah Michelle, but like I feel like that's why I say just drop the mystery and keep Sarah Michelle, because like if we drop the mystery, we can do more Julie, we could do more Ray, we could even do more Barry, because even though we see Barry quite a bit, it's only for him getting his ass kicked. We don't get to see anything about his home life or who he is or what he really wants as a person. But, like, that's why I agree with you. 4 main characters, yes, but it's really about the girls in this movie. We don't really care about the guys.
Well, I think that Barry, I do like him a lot, and I think that he is underrated by today's perspective. And like, I used to kind of bag on Ray, but this past viewing, I'm like, Ray isn't too bad. I mean, I would date Ray. But no, in terms of Helen, and I think like the genius of I Know What You Did Last Summer, the original, and let's see if Jennifer Clayton Robinson will be able to replicate it, is the fact that like we care so much about Helen by the time she goes. That the magic of that scene is the tragedy. It's the fact of not only like the fact that she comes so close to, you know, to freedom, and then that's when she gets killed. But it's just the journey, like just from like, you know, there's so much trauma that Helen goes through just in 4th of July alone, of the hair, you know, someone being in her house and cutting all of her hair off, writing on her mirror, you know, the parade and someone stalking her at the parade, the fact that she sees Barry die, the fact that she sees the cop die, the fact that she's stuck in the cop car and can't get out and she has to fight, you know, to get out of the car. Then she has to, you know, run to the shop, and then she sees Elsa die, and, you know, the killer taunts her in the, you know, with the mannequins, like, and she just runs and runs and runs, and then she dies. It's just like, we are so in love with her, you know, and she is a very sympathetic person. I mean, her dad's kind of a jerk to her. Her sister is definitely a jerk to her. Julie is distant with her. She's a very lonely person. You know, she's not with Barry anymore. This girl has taken a lot of hits. And I think that all of that combined is the reason why we love I Know What You Did Last Summer. It's why that moment when the fisherman appears behind her and they start wrestling in the tires. It is so emotional. I'm even having like goosebumps. I know this sounds so dumb.
Every time.
I kind of every time she's running and she's like, Elsa, open the door, like that moment when she's like, Elsa's trying to find the keys, I get my eyes just fill with tears, and I don't know why.
100%.
But why that moment? Anthony, what are your thoughts?
You know what, something to me that's also so genius about No You Did Last Summer is that these characters, they do something very bad, and they're in a very moral gray area because we shouldn't like them because of what they did. I mean, we find out obviously they really saved they killed the killer, but we don't know that. So they did something very bad, and the fact that the movie, even Barry, like, I'm like upset when he goes. So the fact that the movie somehow gets us to care about these people, even Julie, like, she didn't want to go through with it, but she kept her mouth shut and went through with it at the end of the day. The other 3 kind of pushed her to that point, but the fact that we are on team all 4 of them and we want them to make it out, even though in any other slasher we'd be like, when are they going to get taken out? That's a testament to, you know, the director and Kevin of the first movie and the actors. Like, I care about each of them, and I want them all to make it. And the Sarah Michelle Gellar stuff, just because she just watched her boyfriend die. Her and Julie, we know her home life sucks. Her dad doesn't even acknowledge her. Her sister sucks. Her sister hates her. Julie, she's trying to reconnect with Julie, and Julie's having none of that. So I just think by the time where she's getting chased and she's just fighting so hard to live, and she's pleading with Elsa, like, Jesus Christ, open the door. You just feel so much for her because her life is shit. Like, her life is so bad, and she has so much. I think it comes down to she has so much will to live and fight. She is such a fighter, and the fact that she fights so hard for that whole chase sequence, and I don't think she would have made it out even if she didn't turn around. I know people hate that point when she turns around, but in my opinion, he already made it in front of her regardless. So he was going to take her out before she reached the crowd in the parade, no matter what. So I don't get that nitpick. She turned around once, and he was already behind her. But it's just so sad, and she's even fighting when at that point she's fighting, but she also must be accepting her fate, but she's still not giving up to the last stab. And it's just bravo to Sarah Michelle Gellar, and just bravo to the directing, everything. But yeah, every time I watch it, and I've seen this movie like endless times, every time I'm like, she's gonna make it out. I'm rooting for her to make it out, and every time she doesn't, it just breaks my heart. So that's where the tears from the banging on the door to the end just stay in my eyes the whole time. It's so good. But you have Scream where Sydney's not morally gray at all. So there's a difference right there. She's always morally right.
And see, like, the people who think that Scream 6 is acceptable for not killing anybody off, show them I Know What You Did Last Summer, and show them Barry and Helen being killed and the impact that has. And I think that's your answer. Jess, do you have anything you want to add?
Yeah, I think there's not, like, you can go on about that scene. It's like perfection, right? From beginning to end. And, they do make the right decision of staying on her the whole time. And the thing is that, Sarah Michelle Gellar has this way of playing something with such, like, hurt innocence that even when we know that she hasn't really thought about this guy, she, forgot the name of whatever the fuck his name is, the guy that they thought they killed or whatever, and all of that. It's like the way she plays it is like, yeah, but I'm trying to get on with my life. What's wrong with wanting to live? You know what I mean? That you kind of identify with that. So she's the one who almost sells you, right? Because Julie's on the other end of it. But yeah, every time I watch that scene, I have to look away because I don't want to see her die. It's still effective to me. What I noticed this time watching it, because I don't watch it that often, is that there is a fight in that tire, between all those tires, which to me is like really a similarity, probably just Kevin's style for his horror movies, is that it's not just over. Like, it reminds me of Casey, right? You have like this back and forth, and she pushes him, and like, it's really hard to even watch, even though it's barely graphic, and it kind of shows you what character work can do, what music can do, and what, like, certain angles you can do. You don't have to be that graphic to have an impactful death. So yeah, probably, yeah, you're right. Best chase scene of all time. Just wonderful all around.
Love it. We convinced Jess. Okay, so I'm just wrap up with these last couple differences. Okay, back to the differences. So just to kind of go off of what Anthony already started to say, which is like in Scream, I feel like Sydney is a hero. It's a hero's story. Whereas in I Know What You Did Last Summer, there is a moral question being asked about why the killer is after these teens. Like, that doesn't exist in Scream. Scream didn't happen because Sydney did something wrong. Sydney is a victim to them. She's an innocent, whereas the people in I Know What You Did Last Summer, not necessarily innocent, so there's a question there that's interesting and completely different, like in terms of the storytelling. In Scream, there is a literal whodunit, a murder mystery, versus a very plot-based mystery, I would argue, and I Know What You Did Last Summer, where we're not investigating who Ben Willis is before we meet him. So that's a specific difference. Okay, and then Jess talked about this as a potential flaw of the movie, which is the changing point of view. We go from Helen to Julie to Barry. We never really get Ray's point of view until the very end, but that's something uniquely different compared to the first Scream, because we're just in Sydney's POV the entire time. Ghostface attacks and kills versus the fisherman who fucks with them. I guess you could say that Ghostface calling them is fucking with Sydney and whomever else, but the fisherman he keeps them alive just to mess with them, and I don't think Ghostface doesn't necessarily do that with Sydney, at least not in this movie. Someone already mentioned it, that I Know What You Did Last Summer lacks the meta aspect of Scream's formula, and there is some media mentioned in passing references in I Know What You Did Last Summer Summer, but that's all that they are, is just passing references. And the deaths are set pieces in Scream versus most of the deaths in I Know What You Did Last Summer. They happen through the lens of one of the main characters. So like Helen, poor Helen, she gets to see almost every single person get killed. And that's just not, we don't see that. Sydney gets to see Kenny die, and that's pretty much it. She's not in the garage with Tatum. She's not in Casey's house with her. That's a huge difference. And, again, we don't really know the motive till the end of Scream. Like, that's part of the reveal. That's part of the finale. Versus in I Know What You Did Last Summer, we're learning the motive throughout the movie. That's part of that's part of the fun of I Know What You Did Last Summer. So very different. And like, of course, the ending, the epilogue of Scream always ends with an epilogue of closure. Whereas the epilogues in I Know What You Did Last Summer, they're there to jazz the audience one last time and leave them with excitement. And with that, Anthony and Jess, any final thoughts here? We'll start with Jess.
Yeah, I agree with all of these. I have just a little bit of a question because you guys are really big fans of this movie. One of the things that kind of really annoyed me about Julie is that she's never confronted with her own hypocrisy. Because yeah, I get it, she didn't want to go along with it, but girl, you went along with it, and then they're all also going along with it, but you want to judge them for that. And it also seemed to me that she stopped talking to them because they actively made the decision to go along with this murder, well, attempted murder, accident, whatever you want to call it. And I was wondering, how do you feel about that no one ever, not even the fisherman himself, he never stopped and said, you think that you're innocent, or you think that you're somehow above this, but because you're not. You had ample time to go ahead and come forward about this, and you never did. And I just kind of wish that was something that Julie had to reckon with as a character, that, hey, you are no better in a lot of ways.
Anthony, you want to field that?
I would say the way that Julie, I mean, I don't think anyone made her besides, the climax, she's trying to get killed. I would say I view it as more of Julie as self-sabotage. We find out she's flunking out of school. She has no social life. She looks like, she doesn't get out of bed. So I feel like her punishment is almost what she did to herself because she wasn't strong enough to stick up to her friends. And we do have a scene in the middle of the movie where I think it's in the hospital after Barry gets hit by the car. She wants to go to the cops and she gets put down again. So I would say, well, I do think it would be cool. It would have been really cool if the fisherman at the end, we had a little monologue of taunting her, like, you think you're the good one, but that would have been pretty awesome. Actually, I would have liked that. But I think that she punished herself enough where I'm like, okay, she's not dealing with it well. So everything that happened is because of herself, what she's doing to herself negatively.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I get what Jess is saying, that Julie is complicit, but it's hard. I thought about this a lot as I've watched it over the past couple of weeks. Is what would I have done in that situation? Are we in it as a group, or are we in it as individuals? And I don't know. I think that I Know What You Did Last Summer does really show how the pain and the guilt weighs on her and destroys her, and it really messes up her life. And I think that she is punished, even though she never actually gets to own up to that. So, but.
Yeah, the only thing, that's fine. The only thing I wanted that could have made it a little better was, that conversation with Sarah Michelle in the car when she's like, what happened to us? We were best friends. Jennifer Love Hewitt is doing a great job, in her face acting, responding to all of that and not talking to her. But I would have just loved to maybe, to have Julie say, I tried to talk to you about this. You wouldn't talk to me about it.
Right.
That's what happened. But we couldn't talk about it. It's between us now. You know what I mean? Something like that. Because you can infer, but I don't know. I just want a little bit more drama. I mean, you have Jennifer Love Hewitt and Sarah Michelle Gellar in the car. Let them get into the drama.
Wouldn't that have been
show? Yeah.
And wouldn't that have been interesting for Julie to have gone to Helen and been like, hey, we should rethink this. We should talk about this because, this is bad. And Helen saying, Julie, we need to move on. That would have been that link that Jess is talking about that I think could have made it a bit richer. Very nice. Well, guys, and Anthony, what are your final thoughts?
No, I agree 100%. I think that would have been really good, but I do think for a slash movie, what we got was median up, but that would have been cool to have that conflict separate from the boys. Like Jess said, it really is the two-hander with the girl, so that conflict between them two, having maybe a 3-minute sequence of that conflict with just them two would have been really meaty. But overall, I do think they succeeded, in their mission, and obviously I'm obsessed with this movie. So yeah, I love this conversation, and anytime someone says, and again, it's nothing wrong, they have a few similar things, but anytime someone says that I Know We Did Last Summer is copy and paste Scream, I'm like, I'm just gonna share this episode. and go through the differences that we just talked about, because it's not copy and paste at all.
Literally, just because it may look similar in the marketing
Right.
doesn't mean that the movies have anything in common whatsoever, except for the writing credit. So talk about the movie itself. Don't talk about it in comparison to what came before. Be a little smarter, comma influencer. So, all right, everybody. Jess, where can they find you online?
You can find me as RavenFX5 on Twitter and Blue Sky.
Awesome. And Anthony, where can they find you and your YouTube show?
You guys can find me on Anthony DePuzzo at Twitter or Twitter X, and then my podcast with my buddy is Never Split Up Pod. Just follow us on social media. Thank you.
Awesome. So, everybody, we will see you next time. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Taylor Swift Song of the Day. I'm your host, Ryan C. Showers. Very please welcome my co-host and producer, Ashley. Hey, Ash.
Hi, Ryan. So glad to be here.
Well, Ash, tell everybody where they can find you, your Etsy shop, and our game.
You can find me at SquirrelInside9. There you will find a link to my Etsy store. You'll also find the Scream game that Ryan and I put out every Wednesday. It's super fun. We try to make a puzzle or something interactive to just keep people engaged and see what all of your thoughts are on things. And you'll also see probably a lot of pictures of my cat.
Ashley, what is the Taylor Swift Song of the Week?
The Taylor Swift Song of the Week is Bejeweled. Insert diamond noises here. So this is track 9 off of Midnight, which came out in 2022. It was written and produced by Taylor and Jack Antonoff. And to me, and I think the basic general consensus, if you just look at this song just without too much detail, it sounds like somebody kind of like reclaiming their power and realizing their worth, and then also telling their partner what their worth is too, and saying like, hey, if you don't appreciate me, I can easily go and live my life and be happy and find people or whoever it is, whatever relationship it is, to appreciate me.
Yeah. Well, so let's talk about this song. This song is on Midnights. It's a very fun song. Like, sometimes Midnights is, it's a pop album, and like there are a lot of singles from it, a lot of music videos, but there's a lot of songs that are experimental on Midnights. I find like you can't necessarily I wouldn't be able to sit down and play like the album from start to finish for my entire family, like my sister, my mom, my grandma, and Brent, who all have different tastes in music. It's not like a 1989 where you go with the flow. Midnights, there's very experimental music on it. This song, however, I think is a song I could play for Abby, my mom, grandma, and Brent. It's just there's something very universal about it, and very fun and sparkly and glittery, and also the message of the song is it's very inspiring in terms of like being reflective of yourself and your self-worth and understanding what an act of independence could be. You know what I mean? So going back to Midnights overall as an album, it is the album about the things that Taylor thinks about that keep her up at night. So it's interesting that this is a song that falls on the album of Midnights, and that Taylor lays awake thinking about this topic and this arc for herself. Ashley, thoughts?
Yeah, I love this song. I feel like it's really catchy, and when you actually sit down and listen to the lyrics, it's really fun and really clever how she is explaining her feelings. And I love when she says how she's like, you put me in the basement, but I want to be in the penthouse. And I mean, obviously that's kind of like a pretty easy, it's like, oh my god, it's so literal that it's easy for people to picture what she's feeling. And like sapphire tears on my face, like I love how she uses all these different words to kind of like talk about being bejeweled in different ways. And I just think this song is so fun, and it's just like a really good message to be like, if somebody's not appreciating you, no matter where you are, it doesn't necessarily have to be with a romantic partner. If you're not being appreciated, and you're putting in all the work and you're not getting it back, like just remember, like you're still bejeweled, and you can make the whole place shimmer.
Well, I actually wore this blue shirt tonight for Bejeweled specifically, just because this is like the color that's kind of in the Bejeweled music video. But and you did too. There you go.
Yeah, but mine have cats in space.
So this song, Ashley kind of already alluded to it, but like how I interpret this song is Ashley kind of framed it like as it could be like you're still with your partner, and you're like almost like trying to like get them to come to your side and see your self-worth. But for me, I kind of see this as like the song of like she's already made the decision to leave that person behind, and she is like choosing to leave that relationship or friendship or whatever it is go because this person is dimming her light, and she's not being able to be fulfilled as a person, as a partner, as an artist, as a professional in whatever capacity because this person is holding her back. And like for me, this is something that I deeply, deeply, deeply identify with. You know, one of the lines in the songs, which I think it almost, you could look at this line as like an encapsulation of the entire Midnight's album, I think. But it's I miss you, but I miss sparkling. And like there's this idea of like you can't have both. It's sad. You can't. She feels as though she can't have both. She can't both sparkle and be with this person that she thinks she loves. That's some. I think that's a human truth that every single person on this universe has felt at one point, whether it's a romantic partner, a friend, a family member, whatever. And I think like the point of the song is like, you know, if you are somebody with, and because we all are, right? We all have some gift to give, something about us that is special and unique. And if that person is holding that back or suppressing it, you know, the best way to get that glimmer back is to shed the thing that's holding that back, which is that person. So, any thoughts here?
No, I completely agree. I love how she says, and I miss you, but I miss sparkling. And it's just like, I agree. Like, I think of this song as almost like it's almost like her amping herself up to like break up with somebody or to like leave the relationship. And
Yeah.
like, I love the line where she says, like, and when I met the band, they asked, do you have a man? And I can still say, I don't remember. And it's so funny because I think there's so many times like when you've been like, maybe you're out dancing and you're having fun and you're realizing that like maybe you're with somebody that isn't good for you and you're probably going to end things. And it's not like I'm saying like everybody should go cheat on their partner, but sometimes like I remember realizing I needed to break up with somebody and then I went on vacation and I didn't do anything like bad, but did I have more fun almost looking at myself as like being a little bit more single? Like, I mean, like I was just felt a little bit more free to be myself than to be how I felt almost tied down by this relationship. It wasn't like going anywhere. And it was just kind of like all consuming me realizing that I needed to end it because I cared about this person. But going on vacation and just realizing like I can just be free right now and I'm just gonna be myself, like putting on like a fancy dress and going out dancing with your girlfriends and just like somebody being like, do you have a boyfriend? Can I buy you a drink? And me being like, oh, yeah, you can buy me a drink, but like nothing's gonna happen with this. But like it's just fun. And I think it's a really empowering, fun song. And I feel like everybody can give it a listen and just like dance and just like move your hips a little bit. You don't have to be the best dancer to enjoy Bejeweled. You can just kind of wiggle.
I want to just share like my favorite kind of part of the song before we go. So this is part of like we hear the chorus for the first time, then she goes to this. Baby boy, I think I've been too good of a girl. I did all the extra credit that got graded on a curve. Ouch.
Mhm.
That is my life where I feel as though I'm always doing something really nice for people, and then those people do not that I'm expecting something in return, but they seem to just diminish that. You know, I feel that so
Mhm.
deeply. You know, she says, she says, I think it's time to teach some lessons. I made you my world. Have you heard? I can reclaim the land. I love that. I can reclaim who I am and who this is. And I kind of picked this song for this episode because I know she did last summer in Scream. They are both franchises that are, you know, from the past, and they are having a reclaiming of their identity and their relevance and their importance in the pop culture. So they are Bejeweled and they can still make the whole place shimmer.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I like picture like all the final girls from like the 90s just like walking down the street with this, just like how I like just walking down a road all together hand in hand, being like, yeah, bitch, we're still Bejeweled and we can still make the whole place shimmer and we're still gonna be the reason why people wanna or one of the reasons why people want to see these movies and like they're I feel like it could be like a really fun like FU to realizing that older women can still bring in box office numbers and people want to see older women in movies, even though these women aren't old. They're just like 40 or 50. Oh my God, scary to the studios, it seems. But I just feel like imagine Gail and Sydney just like walking down the street after Scream 7 and like this starts playing because they're just like, yeah, you tried to come and get us again, but it doesn't work.
Yeah. Well, as my good friend Taylor Swift once sang, a diamond's gotta shine. So, all right, Ash, thank you so much.
Thank you.
This is a I Know What You Did Last Summer rant that I really need to get out to someone. And I know that you are a horror lover. And so, listen, I'm sorry. I just need to get this out because I just rewatched, I know you did last summer. I haven't rewatched it since I was a kid. I've rewatched Helen's chase scene several times as an adult, but I haven't rewatched the whole movie in a while. So I forgot a lot of the small details now. Ray was useless in this movie. He was completely useless. I don't like that Ray went to go see Missy and he was Billy Blue this whole time and he never told Julie or Helen or Barry because they all split up. Julie went to go back to see Missy to try to figure out who Billy Blue was in Elsa's yearbook because Ray didn't tell them that he was Billy Blue all along. And so Julie could have stayed with Helen and Barry, but instead she went back out to see Missy. And so that's when, Ben got to Helen and Barry. So Ray, useless, like the whole movie, like until the end. Okay. Also, Julie, she will never be Sydney. She will never be Sydney. I'm sorry. And I love Julie. Don't get me wrong. But just some decisions that you made, girl, they were not Final Girl. They were not giving Final Girl energy. They were not giving Sydney energy at all. Like how she trusted Ben at the end of the movie. Like, I get it. You thought Ray was the killer, but girl, come on. Okay? Don't trust anybody. So Julie and everybody else in this movie owes Helen an apology. Julie, when Helen was in the car with her, she was like, look, I miss you. I really do. What happened to us? And Jolie was just a bitch to her. And she never even apologized before Helen died. Also, Helen's father owed her an apology. He was just sitting down doing nothing. Okay, he left her on red in her face when she's like, hey, Dad, and he's just like sitting down watching TV. Elsa owes Helen an apology. Barry owes Helen an apology. That corny-ass cop owes Helen an apology, okay? And I've been seeing justice for Helen for a long time. After rewatching the movie, I agree. Everyone treated Helen like shit. Even the man who wanted her crown after the pageant when she was screaming, somebody say Barry, when all the stupid people were holding her back. Helen was treated poorly. Anyway, Ryan, I'm sorry. I just needed to get this out so bad. Like, I was just flabbergasted at all these details that I forgot over the years. And I know you will understand.
All copyrighted material used or referenced in this show belong to their rightful owners and made possible by the Fair Use Act.
And number 3, never, ever, ever, under any circumstances say, I'll be right back. Because you won't be back. Get another beer, you want one? Yeah, sure. I'll be right back!